Welcome back to the Lap Podcast. I am Tristan Ryans alongside the one and only Khaki Kevin Walker. We are hosting your Destination Formula One podcast following the Singapore Grand Prix a couple weekends ago. We are heading into this weekend's United States Grand Prix from Austin, Texas.
Go Texas.
Yeah, this is a Dallas-based operation, Dallas-Fort Worth, if we're being completely honest. But before we get started, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button. It helps support the channel. It costs you absolutely nothing at all. We're looking at the 82 subscriber mark right now. You, TLP in waiting, could be number 83 on our YouTube channel. Our goal is to hit the 100 subscriber mark by the end of this season. So, tell your mom, tell your friends, tell your teacher, tell other Formula One fans that this is the Destination Formula One podcast you have to tune into. If you haven't joined us yet, join us now. Give us a like, share the videos if you're feeling dangerous. With all that out of the way, let's hop right into this thing. Khaki Kevin Walker, we had some big news today. I'm excited. I'm rocking my Mercedes gear because Mercedes confirmed George Russell and Kimi Antonelli for 2026. George Russell finally getting his contract that he'd been seeking for quite some time. Honestly, it was the big talking point really around Mercedes for a majority of the season. Russell might have moved into the best driver, not named Max Verstappen territory after his win in Singapore. No DNFs this season, matched only by, if you could have guessed it, Lance Stroll, if I'm not mistaken anyway. 8 podium trips this year, including his win in Canada. Mercedes have rewarded his growth and efforts with a hefty extension. So, Kevin, quick reaction. What are you thinking about this as the resident McLaren fan? How do you feel about what's going on over at Mercedes?
Happy for y'all. Good news, obviously, but surprising news, not really. I think it's kind of one of those formality things where it's like, we can assume that, Kimi and George are going to be the drivers next year. We can play the assuming game, but it's kind of like seeing it from the source, from the team themselves is kind of like it gives you that ultimate reassurance that that is the case, and it's going to be the case for 2026 and for a couple of years after that as well. So it's kind of, it kind of, I guess, helps you sleep better at night knowing that it is in fact true rather than assuming that it is true. So not the most surprising news, but happy for George. He very much so deserves it. And, I think giving George his flowers here, this was kind of one of those deals where it wasn't a given that this was going to happen, right? Mercedes brings in George and it's like, hey, no big deal, but we're getting rid of Lewis and we kind of need you to step up to probably the biggest chair that there is to step up to in Formula One. And he's done a hell of a job, and he's done a really incredible. He's been a really incredible leader, a really good voice in that garage. And even though Mercedes isn't necessarily fighting for wins, though they have a few this year, they're not fighting for wins necessarily. Mercedes really hasn't taken that far of a step back post Lewis Hamilton era. So. And a lot of that is a tribute to George because he's done such an incredible job being a good voice, being a good leader, being a good driver, just staying consistent with what he does. And he's very well rewarded and he very much so deserves it. So, good job to George. He's gotten everything he's deserved. And I know that you're happy knowing that you've got a pretty good future ahead of you for Mercedes.
Oh, 100%. But starting with George Russell himself, what does it mean for George being the operative question? I think at some level, it's a vindication of all that effort.
Yeah.
He's been formally with the team since 2022. He's got 5 Grand Prix wins under his belt. He's probably at the top of his game as we speak right now, at least so far on his career. As the Mercedes fan, I hope it only goes up from here. And going back further, he's been with the program for over a decade since he joined as a junior in 2017. He since went on to win titles in GP3, in F2, before finally making the jump up to F1. And now he's locking in with a team that could very well be fighting for a championship next season. With all this rumors and speculation, we're starting to get a little bit more insight into what's happening behind the scenes as it pertains to 2026. And still so far, a lot of the verbiage and a lot of the speculation is that Mercedes at least had the very best power unit. They've been tackling and they've been very, headstrong into what's going to happen in this next regulation. They feel very, very, very confident. And it seems like the rest of the paddock, for better or worse, kind of feels similarly about that. But like you mentioned as well, it kind of solidifies him as this leader within the team if it wasn't already, right?
Right.
He presumably is also going to be the future. It's a huge marker for someone who's shadowed the likes of Lewis Hamilton, spent time with Williams, and honestly, yeah, it's just to wrap it all up in a sense for George, it's got to be hugely vindicating. And he kind of got whatever he wanted here. As far as details are concerned on these deals, there's been nothing released officially on this. There's just been a lot of speculation, but behind closed doors from reports from The Athletic, as well as F1's Lawrence Barretto. If you watch F1 TV, if you watch their broadcast, you probably are familiar with him. Speaking to sources within the team, closer to the negotiations, Russell's deal is reportedly a multi-year agreement that's going to secure his longer-term future with the team. It seems like that was what he wanted from the beginning. He wanted that level of security, and understanding how Formula One contracts work. There's not always a very out in the open, hey, we signed this guy for 3 years and $100 million, the way it is in like other sports like the NBA or the NFL, or maybe in, soccer internationally or football internationally. So for him, though, hugely vindicating to get the deal that he wanted. It's not like Mercedes necessarily had any better options, for him. He kind of had the upper hand within these negotiations. Mercedes wanted him. He wanted to be at Mercedes. And it just seemed like this was logical. It seemed like it was kind of a done deal before it was a done deal. We talked about this for months and months, but it was starting to get to the point there where, what the hell is taking so long? That was my entire plan for this segment, was going to ask, what the hell is taking so long with the George Russell contract? Because you go back months, even looking at what I said, I was going to be surprised if they hadn't gotten something done by Silverstone. Into my surprise, following that weekend, there was no contract on the table, at least officially signed and agreed to. But for George, this is super awesome. As a Mercedes fan, I'm really happy to have him within this lineup. And, speaking of the details as well, mentioning his teammate, Kimi Antonelli, Barretto, also mentioning that Antonelli's on a longer term arrangement with Mercedes as well. Sounds like some kind of multi-year agreement with a team-based option who are kind of managing him as well within all this. So that was kind of speculated from the get-go for months up to this point, but Mercedes wanted to make the official announcement as a joint, Russell and Antonelli are going to be our lineup going forward. But as far as Kimi Antonelli, right, I want to bring you in on this again. What do you think this means for Kimi? How would you feel if you were in that position? Drop yourself in his 19-year-old shoes. How do you think Kimi Antonelli feels knowing that he's got this extension under his belt as well?
He has to feel good about it. He's had for a rookie campaign, he's had a pretty damn good year. Definitely some down lows. He's experienced the highs and the lows, for sure. But for Kimi, he's got to feel good. He's kind of in like an Oscar Piastri situation-esque, where fans and Mercedes themselves have high expectations for what Kimi Antonelli is going to be able to do. But he's not going to be in a rush to do so because he's got such a great leader and such a good driver pairing with him and George that, there's going to be expectations for Kimi to secure double points with George for sure. But it's not like, oh, we need Kimi to be putting up absolute historic numbers and winning weekends after weekends after weekends. Like, I'm sure that's what he's striving for, I guess, from a performance standpoint. But he's got a really good pairing alongside him and a really good system that Toto is going to deliver, and that Mercedes garage, for the most part, is going to deliver. I know you, as a Mercedes fans and other Mercedes fans as well, feel very, very good going into 2026. And I know that he has to as well, knowing that his future's locked up. And, man, you look around the garage, there's not a whole lot of teams that can say they're not locked up. There's a lot of spots, for the most part, that are, we know where these drivers are going to be for 26 and maybe even 27.
Mm-hmm. For Kimi, my 2 cents on it anyway. It's a huge sign of confidence from the team. Like, they've stood behind him this entire season. They understood the expectations walking into this season, where we've got an 18-year-old rookie who prior to this only had a year in F2, skipped
Still had high school.
F3. This guy still hasn't even finished high school when the season started. And he's out there putting it, P4 in torrid conditions in Australia, right? Like, he's got a podium in Canada, back-to-back top 5 finishes over the last 2 Grand Prix weekends. Obviously, there were lows in Europe, whether self-inflicted or inflicted by the team itself. But, I mean, for him, I hope this is some kind of like a relief, right? It takes the weight off your shoulders a little bit and allows you to just go out there and focus on driving, because you're not worried about, am I going to get the contract for next year? Am I going to be able to drive this car next year? Have I done enough? You now have the answer to that question. And he's been pretty impressive. I mean, he is leading the way when it comes to the rookies, albeit understandably, he is driving the best car amongst all the rookies. Isaac Hadjar has had a terrific season too. We're just waiting on that announcement really for him going to Red Bull. But
yeah,
I mean, for Kimi Antonelli, it's incredibly vindicating. As a fan of his, as a fan of George, like, I'm really excited. As for what does this mean for Mercedes in a nutshell, I think it's just a level of security for the team overall. Operationally, everyone can keep building up the foundations of 2025. Procedures are going to be familiar. Your race engineers are going to be the same people. You're still going to have the same level of leadership from top to bottom, and at arguably the most important portions of the team. I mean, it's a team. Everything has to work cohesively and work well. Don't get me wrong, but like, at the end of the day, the guy making the decision in the cockpit is the driver. Having 2 fantastic drivers, especially when it comes to George Russell and what you're hoping you're going to get out of Kimi Antonelli as you continue to develop him, imagining he's going to take some kind of a step forward with a year of experience behind him. I mean, there's not going to be much relearning in 2026. That's only going to be something that's advantageous for them. Teams like, McLaren, they're going to have the advantage similarly, right? Ferrari are going to have a similar advantage by having just 2 drivers with that level of continuity, a year under Lewis Hamilton's belt. And of course, Charles has been in that system for forever. Max Verstappen for Red Bull, at the very least, is going to be that level of continuity. But figuring out his teammate, what is that going to look like? So having at least 2 drivers who understand the deal, understand the codes, understand the infrastructure, that's going to be really important. I think it's a terrific dynamic as well. Antonelli hasn't reached a point of becoming a super threat to George Russell. So far, it's been George Russell 100% of the way across every race weekend. Kimi's had his moments, of course, his biggest moment getting a sprint pole in Miami, but the 2 drivers get along really, really well at this stage. Russell's kind of taken Kimi underneath his wing, so to speak, and they have a shared learning back and forth along the season. And like most notably in Singapore, most recently anyway, George Russell learning from what Kimi was able to do on qualifying laps to help him take that record-breaking pole lap and then breaking it again. So moving forward, though, you have your face of the team in Russell. You have the ability to continue to progress Antonelli towards the championship-level driver you believe he's going to be. And, they've seen what Russell has become in his time within the program, starting from junior, going up to this level. And you're starting to reap that reward. I love it. I mean, everything about what's going on at Mercedes right now has to feel good. You're feeling like you're on this upswing. You just got your second win of the season. They've made some kind of stride forward as well, technically, with their front wing that has kind of opened up the window of operation for them to kind of keep them, keep McLaren on their heels a little bit as we move forward as far as week in, week out race wins. But yeah, everything so far feels really good. The little caveat here, though, and the question is, why did they announce it the way they announced it? Why just 2026? Why do they say this is our lineup for 2026, but not moving forward? Kevin, any theories on that?
I have no theories. I do find it strange, but I have no theories. Nothing comes to mind as of yet. And that's kind of what I said earlier. It's kind of like Mercedes themselves being like, hey, this is our driver pairing. It was a little strange now that we're talking about it, because it wasn't like we signed George Russell to an extension. It was like, hey, no, these are our drivers for 2026. And it was like, okay, yeah, bro, we get it. like we just wanted a George Russell announcement. That's all we really kind of needed here. But you just
but
went
the
out and was like,
specificity of just 2026 is where I'm kind of like,
no,
why'd you
I
say
get
it like
that. I understand that, but I'm going a little bit further as well. That I also thought it was strange that they were like, it wasn't like, okay, let's bring it to other sports terms. It's not like they signed their quarterback and they were like, no, like this is our quarterback and this is our receiver. It was like, okay, but like the quarterback was what we were really asking about. We weren't really concerned about the receiver also staying. Does that make sense? That was what I was thinking. I was kind of like, okay, I get it. It's reestablishing like, hey, these are our guys. We get that. But
we
I
already
do
kind of
agree
knew
that
this, but for
that's what I'm saying. Like
me,
we kind of already knew that, but I guess I appreciate you for telling us once more that these are your guys, and then to not just be like, hey, 2026 and beyond, because that's typically what they'll say in the Formula One world is they'll be like, oh, and beyond, because they don't really get into the specificities of I still didn't say that word right. The specifics. Yeah, that was the word I was trying to say, but the specifics of the contract. I'm tired. Leave me alone. The specifics of the contract, they just say and beyond, but I don't know. They just decided to go about it a little different. But I think even Toto said that they waited a little bit on purpose. So I mean, I don't know why they did half the things they did. I don't know why they waited so long. I don't know why they, worded the way they did, but whatever.
As far as my thoughts and what I read on this, this is now where I'm going to start sharing is there is still a bit of a hang up there though. And Mercedes announcement has specifically, this is our lineup for 2026, but did not explicitly state that this is the case beyond. Everything I've mentioned earlier, though, as far as details, is that, the implication is that this will continue moving forward. But like, why would they say it this way? Why would they specify it this way? Maybe there's a couple of different reasons. One reason being Mercedes didn't really want to get into the nitty gritty details of like when it comes to the agreements to the media. They really didn't want this to be a big conversation as to, okay, but like, what about multi-year deals? What do the contracts look like? How much are people getting paid? What are the incentives? Like, because then you start getting bogged down in detail upon detail. And Toto Wolff just stated pretty plainly, everyone on all sides was happy when it came to the terms. I'm pleased we have it done when it comes to extending George Russell and Kimi Antonelli. So for them, it's maybe a bit of a, hey, this is our lineup for 2026. Stop asking the freaking questions. We already, like, this is going to happen. Now you have your confirmation. The other part of this, though, the conspiratorial part of this being Max Verstappen is still technically being in play for 2027. Like, reading the race's reaction to this news, there was a nugget I pulled that really did catch my attention, which is Max Verstappen's exit clause beginning next season is quite different than this year's. In 2025, he had to remain in P3 in the Drivers' Championship, and then the team had to remain in at least P4 in the Constructors, was also a big sentiment throughout the season. The race mentioned that Verstappen in 2026 needs to remain P2 in the Drivers' Championship by the summer break to keep the current contract, which runs through 2028, completely intact. So Verstappen, in theory, is signed through 2028, but he has a lot of these little clauses attached to his deal that keep the perspective of 2027's driver market really wide open and on his heels. Mercedes, or go ahead.
Or let me throw another name out there that we talked about a couple of weeks ago, Charles Leclerc.
I think his deal runs through 27, but it's one of those deals where he can start looking at things prospectively. Yeah, like he has a whole bunch of little like.
I'm just saying there's a couple of premium names out there that Mercedes might say maybe we're continuing, and I don't know what driver you're thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
So we might be on opposite sides here, but maybe Mercedes is like, yes, we are developing Kimi Antonelli, but if a Max Verstappen becomes available, if a Charles Leclerc becomes available, we could say, hey, maybe we reserve Kimi for a later date. Maybe we send him down to Williams if he needs. Obviously, if Kimi Antonelli is progressing,
which Williams have said they're not going to be the groom team anymore. That's their whole mission is
right,
championship level team. But
But if
they got to figure something out, right?
Right, but like
it's hard to
also,
turn down
are they
championship
gonna
level
say
talent when it's
are
there,
they
right?
yeah, but are they gonna really say no? Like if they wanted to get Kimi Antonelli, it's I understand they don't want to be the grooming team, but I mean that's a top premier level driver. Now, granted, if Kimi is doing the things that we think he's going to be doing by time that time comes around and he's landing podiums on a regular day basis, then they probably won't make that change. But maybe if they're like, maybe he's got another year or two before he really gets this figured out, and we can bring in a Max Verstappen or a Charles Leclerc for a year or two. I don't know. I don't really know what the specifics of that might look like, but I guess speculating, those are the two names that come to mind.
I mean, because look, like it's not a secret in the slightest how Toto Wolff feels about Max Verstappen. I mean, he was a junior driver for Mercedes up until 2015, and then he went over to Red Bull with Toro Rosso, and Red Bull and Ford are beginning this partnership next year that it's the first year for Ford in a long, long time, right? This is going to be a completely new step forward when it comes to Red Bull's ability to develop their own power unit. And nobody's expecting them to jump off and be at the front. And maybe that was an intentional part of Max's contract. It was like, hey, I got to assess my options. I'm not waiting around here to be, mid. You know what I mean? Max is going to once again, and I've said this a few times, I think he's going to continue to be like the topic of conversation when it comes to the driver market, because a lot of these drivers' deals start to expire in 2027 or going into the 2027 season, especially around the rest of the paddock, right? You've got Fernando Alonso, who's even voiced like, yo, if the car for Aston Martin is really good, maybe 26 is my last year because I just want to be competitive. He's like, he's not even saying I need to win a championship. He's like, I just want to be able to fight for wins and like, maybe I'll call it a day. You know what I'm
I
saying?
just had some fun my last year.
Or maybe they'll, Fernando's like, maybe I can win a championship because Newey and Honda are starting to figure it out. And, hey, Lance Stroll's a year-to-year guy, technically on the books 1 year at a time, Max Verstappen becomes available. They keep saying how much they want to win. Or maybe somebody else takes a major step forward and then another contract expires. There's a lot of these other drivers, though, that are on these effective year-to-year contracts. And there are going to be 11 teams on the grid next year, all of which respectfully would probably like to have a piece of Max Verstappen if it was possible. As for Mercedes, I mean, I think I don't know that they'll actually end up doing it in a boring sense. I've gone back and forth on this a lot, but realistically speaking, I mean, this is a combo of drivers that Mercedes feel really confident in. If I'll put it like this, in 2026, if Kimi really struggles, this is to me where the conversation heats up. Yeah. And George and Max, put aside the little squabbles, they've had here and there and become teammates. And then they dominate the next regulation for the next 4 or 5 years, right? Or they dominate, with the driver lineup that they've got for the next 3 to 4 years, And I'm not wishing that because I do really believe in Kimi Antonelli. But, Mercedes are just at a level doing their due diligence. Oppositely, George Russell is doing the same thing. He's doing his due diligence when it comes to having his prospects available for 2027. Seeing maybe Mercedes, they mess it up. Maybe the power unit isn't as good as they were expecting it to be. Maybe something becomes available and Ferrari looks really interesting and, they go, hey, we really love you, Lewis Hamilton, but Max Verstappen wants to go drive a red car, right? Who knows? Who knows what's available? Wrapping this up, though, putting a little bit of a bow on it, I will say this much. For me, what does it mean for Tristan, the resident Mercedes fan of this Lapped podcast?
Do tell us.
I'm incredibly excited about the contracts that have been signed. I've saddled into my Antonelli fandom. I'm a big fan of George's. I see him as a possible front runner for 2026. I see Mercedes, based on the speculation, they're the team to beat. Of course, yeah, George signing and sticking around, arguably the second best driver on this grid, being on the team that I support, and a guy that I do like in George Russell. Why wouldn't I want to root for that? I can get behind this as a Mercedes fan. I have confidence in this. I got a feeling this combo is going to do terrific things in 2026. Again, still super curious what the driver market looks like 2026, 2027, but because there's a lot riding on a potential Max Verstappen, who knows what's going to happen there. but I like this lineup. I like the team as it is. If things get off to a good start, long term, I see this working out. And I don't think it makes sense to drop Kimi with a belief that he's going to be the next Max in terms of talent, especially if he keeps showing promise that he's shown this year and just gets better. And if George is at the top of his game with a shot at the title in 2026, if he walks away first, second place in a championship, why the hell would Mercedes decide, nah, we're gonna make a switch? So I'm just saying, I for all like the fireworks and all the flair, me right now in October of 2025, I don't see them changing their driver lineup, at least not, on a whim. I'll put it like that. But any closing thoughts, Kevin, at least on this subject?
No, I feel like we said everything that we need to say. We'll see what Mercedes can do in the new regulations, but for now, they're going to continue to contend this year, and I think it's going to help out, like you said, help the team for Kimi and George with some comfortability, knowing that they're not fighting for that next contract, if you will.
Yeah. And I want to know what the TLPs think. What do you guys think's going on? George Russell's contract. How do you feel about it? Is Mercedes going to keep the Verstappen door open? What does 2026, 2027 look like? Are the predictions, full of hot air? I just want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. So TLPs, let us know. But it's been a bit of a slower news cycle. There's not a whole lot else going on, but we still got to talk about our what's more likelies as we head into this United States Grand Prix. It's a fun little segment that Kevin and I have been doing for the last, about a month now, heading into each Grand Prix weekend.
Yeah.
Just trying to figure out, what's more likely as we watch this race this upcoming weekend. Kevin's got 2 questions. I've got 2 questions. Kevin Walker, khaki Kevin Walker, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I'll start us off.
All right.
I'll start us off on a little light one first. Okay. What's more likely, repeat Grand Prix winner or repeat DNF?
How so? We didn't have a DNF in Singapore.
No. I should have specified. I meant
Like, you think Charles Leclerc wins it back-to-back, or do we get a DNF?
I should have specified. I meant repeat as far as what happened in COTA last year.
Ooh, that's interesting. So results-wise, in 2024, we got a Ferrari on the top step, 1-2 by Ferrari with Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, and then Max Verstappen to round out that podium. Ooh. Or we get who DNF?
Go ahead and look who DNF.
Lewis Hamilton DNF. I think, unfortunately, it's probably more likely that we get a Lewis Hamilton DNF than a Ferrari.
Really?
Yeah, that's how I feel about it this year. Because Ferrari have struggled. The best thing they've done this year is hit a podium, or I guess technically the best thing they did was get a win in China, but they're not upgrading the car. Nothing new has hit this car in the last, 6 or 7 Grand Prix at this point.
Yeah, they've already said they're pretty much standing pat.
They're effectively done. They're moving on to 2026 with what has been reported as a very ambitious approach to the next regulation. A very ambitious approach when it comes to their engine package as well.
Dang, I was hoping you were saying more white for the HP logo.
More white for the HP? Oh my God. I mean, the car is going to be half white, half red. I'm sure F1, historians and fanatics are going to love that. But no, I would say we're probably going to get a repeat. I would more than likely say we're going to get a repeat Lewis Hamilton DNF rather than a Charles Leclerc or Ferrari 1-2.
I'm on the opposite side. I think it's more likely that Charles Leclerc would get a repeat win based on his performance of COTA last year.
Explain that a little bit. What about that stood out to you that you're like, man, I think Ferrari are going to just have it locked in?
I think I would lean more towards that, mainly because there's been a good amount of parity in the last few races, but also Lewis Hamilton himself is not really known as a DNF kind of guy, other than engine issues or car problems. Things just happen. But it's not like we're like betting on Lewis Hamilton. He's not one of our picks for DNFing on P10 quite often. So
Yeah.
I would just say that Charles is more of a guy that we could see stealing a win, I guess is the word you would use. So that's why I lean more towards Charles getting a win.
Interesting. I mean, I'm really curious to see how this one's going to pan out. I mean, I would think statistically,
Both
you'd
would be
probably be on your
wild. I will
side.
say that. Both
Both would be
wild.
very wild. It would change the entire complexion of like.
Yeah.
It would change the complexion quite a bit, and maybe not so much in a championship perspective, but like it would.
Hey,
well, at least it would make things
Charles
a lot
is
closer
still
in
in it.
P2.
Charles is still in it. Don't forget.
Mathematically still in it. He was a little bit surprised to find that out, but I would be. I mean, I guess in a way, I'd be pleasantly surprised if Charles did win. It would be finally Ferrari have taken this top step. They've taken the top step in a Grand Prix format anyway. It would kind of suck if Lewis couldn't get that win, knowing how much he wants to win this year with his new team. Just from a confidence perspective, it would be huge for Lewis to win. If Lewis DNF'd here, I'd argue it's probably one of the roughest 3-week stretches of the guy's life. Unfortunate passing of Roscoe Hamilton, a really rough race in Singapore where he got penalized and got knocked down a peg, right? And then to go into Austin and then have another DNF in back-to-back, years, that'd be really rough. And I'm not rooting for it, but I just think it's probably a little bit more likely. My turn here. What's more likely? We get a George Russell back-to-back Grand Prix victories, or Oscar Piastri reclaims the top step for the first time in what I'm pretty confident here. I think it's 3 Grand Prix victories, or 4 Grand Prix weekends, excuse me.
I'm gonna take the low-hanging fruit. I'm gonna go with a Oscar Piastri victory is more likely.
Okay, excuse me. Technically, he has not won a Grand Prix in 3 race weekends.
So he's overdue. He's definitely overdue. So I'm going to take an Oscar Piastri Grand Prix victory.
I'm riding the high. I'm riding this high of George Russell, Mercedes. I'm smoking hopium. No, I think about it like this. I didn't expect Mercedes to do anything in Singapore. It's warmer. It's a humid temperature. So far, this regulation, they've really thrived on cooler temperatures, but they brought this wing that kind of opened up their window a little bit. They opened up their ability in Singapore, and I don't know, George found a way to win. He put in some terrific laps. Now he's got the confidence of, hey, I've got this new contract. I feel like it's possible.
Or does he get lazy with the new contract?
I don't think George is the kind of guy who gets lazy.
I know,
that's just my take.
With you.
But I like the conjecture 2 for 2 that we don't agree on. I'm okay with it.
Okay. All right. Ahead. You want me to go next?
Second. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Stay with me here. This is based on last year's Austin Grand Prix. Both my questions are based on both last year's Austin Grand Prix. So last year, this is just dating ourselves based on how wild last year was compared to this year. Ferrari, McLaren, and Red Bull all finished double in the points. Both drivers from each of their teams finished in the points. So we had double points for McLaren, double points for Ferrari, and double points for Red Bull. Okay, follow with me. Okay. What's more likely? Ferrari and McLaren double points for each of their for each driver, or Mercedes double points with a max win. Or not a max win, but max points. Do you want me to re-explain? It's kind of a lot.
Wait, so Mercedes double points and a max wins, or he just gets in the points?
Just gets in the points.
This feels like you're asking me to set your parlay up.
It's not a parlay. I'm not betting on Formula One. I'm about to move in. I can't be betting. I got to be a responsible adult.
For now. Kind of. I would say, I think that Ferrari and McLaren double points. I mean, I don't know. You're basically just asking, like, are the top 4 going to score points in which order, right? I would say McLaren and Ferrari are pretty likely to score double points each. I think that the lowest, the most like unlikely thing here, or the most likely thing here, is something goes wrong for Kimi, right? because he's just the most inexperienced driver among, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 7, among the 7 drivers. I don't know if he's raced in Austin yet. It's going to be really hot, by the way, this weekend, which I'll allude to here in a moment on our track talk. But it's going to be really toasty. Yeah, I mean, if we're going to go based on things, I don't know. He's also performed really well at Grand Prix circuits he doesn't know. The only ones he performed terribly at were the ones that he was familiar with. You know what? I'll say Mercedes are going to get double points, and Max is going to also get points. I'll go with the latter. I think that if something happens, Ferrari might DNF, like we alluded to earlier. Maybe Lewis grabs a bit of gravel. The McLarens are going to be fighting at the front. Maybe Oscar says screw it to the papaya rules, and finally, we got 5 Grand Prix to go, and I'm taking this beach by the horns. You know what I'm saying? So, I think he's just not taking it anymore. So, yeah, let's say there's an incident between the McLarens. Papaya rules have to go out the window. I'm going to go Mercedes double points and Max points.
So, I enjoyed seeing your brain work there as you were flip-flopping between both sides.
You asked a pretty complicated question, to be fair.
It was a complicated question, and I kind of felt bad for asking it, but I wanted to kind of elevate from the other
ladies and gentlemen, these what's more likely questions, they're kind of tough. They're kind of tough.
They bring out the best in us. They bring out the best in us. I'm actually going to go with Mercedes double points and Max points as well. Because you kind of alluded to it. Ferrari kind of being the X factor there on the first part of that question. I could just see a situation where Lewis, like you said, catches gravel, has a bad day, some kind of penalty, which has been kind of happening a lot lately, post-race penalties. I could just kind of see one of those situations being the reason why double McLaren points, double Ferrari points doesn't happen. I feel like at this rate, safe to assume Max is going to get the points. And it's really, like you said, it's just going to be kind of up to Kimi. I think that Kimi's going to find himself being comfortable in a Mercedes in Austin. I don't know why. I just imagine Kimi.
He's got the cowboy hat on.
Yes, he's got the cowboy hat on, just completely embracing
Austin. Y'all.
And I don't know why. I just imagine him absolutely rocking it in Austin. And
I mean, I hope you're right.
I don't know. I just for some reason
I hope he kicks ass at the Circuit of the Americas. Personally, you just make my weekend that much better. But
I mean, we need somebody to represent, because Danny Ricciardo was our Texas guy. I mean, he was through and through our Texas guy.
So we're assuming that Kimi Antonelli becomes the Texas diehard out of nowhere.
It's either Kimi Antonelli or Oscar Piastri, because he did put out a post today eating some barbecue.
Yeah, he likes Austin. He's a big fan.
He said he wants to race in Austin all the time. So it's one of them.
He likes the barbecue. I don't know if it would be good for his figure. The car
it's either the Aussie replacement or the young Italian lad.
I mean, I'm not going to speak for either of these guys. I think they both probably like the atmosphere a bit, but I don't know. I feel like Oscar might be a bit more of a natural Texas fit than maybe Kimi. That's just my impression, though.
Probably.
All right, let me round this thing out, though. What's more likely? We get 3 rookies in the top 10, or we get 2 McLarens on the podium?
3 rookies, top 10?
3 rookies, top 10 points finish Grand Prix, or we're going to get both of the McLarens on the podium this weekend.
Can I break the rules and pick both to happen?
No, you got to pick one or the other. What's more likely? It's the name of the game, Kevin. Come on.
I know.
You're a college graduate. Degree pending.
Pending. I was going to say pending. Double McLaren. You said double McLaren podium, right?
Yeah, so that'd be an Oscar and Lando 1 to 2 to 3.
Yeah, I know what it means. I know what it means. I'm just confirming. Okay. So I see Isaac.
Kimi.
I can see Kimi.
This is where it gets tough. You're relying on maybe Colapinto to finally grab the points, or I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. We're working back to front here. Or we go Bortoleto to have a really strong weekend, or Ollie Behrman driving Haas, with their home race with the U.S. Grand Prix livery. Like they've got a little extra pep in their step in front of all the sponsors.
I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go McLaren double podium because McLaren does pretty good in Austin historically. Anyway, got a lot of papaya here in Texas. I feel like so. I just feel like they're gonna not like a home circuit, but like I feel they're gonna just feel comfortable. So yeah, I'm gonna go McLaren double podium. But
I'm gonna push back.
I'm not ultra confident in it. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm gonna push back. I think Ollie Behrman's probably gonna be our make or break at some level. He might even have the best
American team.
Haas is an American team. We forget about it with Cadillac on the way, but they're an American team, American owned anyway. And I think that Ollie could very well find himself having a really, really good weekend. I got a feeling in my gut there. But
so you're thinking Isaac, Kimi, Ollie?
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, I could see either or I could see
neither.
I don't know. I'm really in the middle, but I'm low key kind of leaning towards the rookies. But
I mean, you said McLaren.
I know it's just a really good question. I'm gonna stick with McLaren, but I'm not it's the least confident I could be in the more likely category.
Interesting. Okay, well, it's time for somebody's favorite segment. I don't know who out there it's their favorite segment, but I mean, I enjoy doing it. It's time for Tristan to hit this
talk really fast for 60 seconds.
Watching the radio voice come alive and, in its full breadth, stumbling and bumbling where necessary. But no, it's genuine. We're doing this thing. We're rocking and rolling.
Do you think 60 seconds is all you need?
60 will be fine. I think we can do it in 60. Singapore was interesting last time to credit, the lore of the first Grand Prix in Singapore.
All right. Let me know when you're ready. I'll start the timer. I got you for a minute.
Okay. All right. Whenever you're ready, count me down.
3, 2, 1, go.
Taking a trip around the circuit of the Americas at the United States Grand Prix. You got 56 laps with a lap length of 5.5 kilometers or 3.4 miles. Lap records for the race, 136.169 by Charles Leclerc in a Ferrari in 2019. Valtteri Bottas in 2019 and his Mercedes put up the best lap around the circuit of the Americas at a 132.029 for qualifying. Lewis Hamilton owns 5 wins, all with Mercedes. 2012 and then 2014 to 2017, he held the honor 4 in a row. 2 DRS zones, main straight to turn 1, and then between 11 and 12. Built in 2012, first winner Lewis Hamilton in 2012 with Mercedes. Biggest moments, Kimi Räikkönen's final Formula One win was at this destination with Ferrari converting a second-place start to the top step. Weather this weekend, it's going to be hot as hell. We're probably going to be seeing about 33 degrees Celsius to 32, 91 degrees to 89 degrees for the entire race weekend. Minimal chance of precipitation, about 30% chance.
About a minute 5.
Oh, you gotta wrap the thought up though. You can't leave a mid-sentence.
I'll give it to you. Exceptional job once again.
Appreciate it. No, but it's gonna be a toasty one, man. I mean, it's been hot here in Texas. It's been
hot,
really
but it has been cooling down for Texas standards. It was only 85 today.
So, I'll put it like this: if you're an international audience, we only had triple digits 7 times this year.
This is one of the cooler summers we've ever had.
Yeah, it's certainly the coolest I've had since I moved here a few years ago, and we only had triple digits 7 times this year.
Go figure the year I get a car with AC.
But it's just dragged on and on and on. At least in my opinion, it's felt like a very long, prolonged summer.
I would say this week was the first week where I kind of felt it getting a little cooler, but
when you're sitting in your car for an hour and 20 minutes baking, though,
this is Texas. It could jump up to 105 degrees race day, to be honest with you. So
It's gonna feel toasty in those cars. I know that.
It's gonna feel hot, a little hot for sure.
Oh yeah. So let's move on though. Final segment of this episode. We got on a little longer than I was even expecting. P10 predictions. We got a little bit of a I wouldn't say a close race at this point of the season. There's still an opportunity for Kevin to catch up. Less than 50-point gap with 5 races to go. Anything could happen. Last race weekend, he bested me by 3 points. It was a bit of a close one though. Nonetheless, walking into this race weekend, Kevin Walker. I'm gonna let you go second. I've been letting you go first. No, I'll start with you. Who do you think's gonna win this thing? Who do you think's gonna win? I'll let you start. You're behind. I'll let you answer first.
I'll go with my boy Lando. He loves Austin.
Lando Norris.
Yeah, he went and visited the Texas facility, so we're back. So
you think he's gonna show up with a nice burnt orange dome? Little burnt orange and white on the Lando helmet.
If he does, I'm buying that mini helmet semi-immediately. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and bet that he wins. Okay.
For me, I said it earlier. I'm going to double down on it. I'm going to go George Russell goes back to back. I think George is going to be a factor here. Mercedes have historically performed pretty well here. I think constructor-wise, they own the most wins here, which doesn't necessarily mean much, but I'm pretty sure it's true. But yeah, Mercedes have performed pretty well here historically. A couple of years ago, Lewis Hamilton put together a really nice race here before the disqualification. I think George Russell could be a factor. DNF for this weekend. Your pick.
Liam Lawson.
You think Lawson's due?
I just see it. Picture it when I close my eyes.
I'm going to go boring. I don't think anybody DNFs this weekend.
I was leaning towards no DNFs.
Look, it's going to be hot. I think if there is a DNF, it's not because somebody crashes. I'd be maybe even a bit surprised if there's an actual collision. But if there's going to be anything that happens this year, it's going to be some overheating mechanical failure. It might not be as the tires melt. The degradation is going to be high this weekend, which plays really well into McLaren's hands. But I'm going to say nobody DNFs. I think we might be expecting something and nothing happens. Similar to Singapore, 2 years in a row, no DNFs. Only one DNF last year, Lewis Hamilton. Your P10 selection, Khaki Kevin Walker. Who you got?
My P10, I'm going to go with... It's kind of hard to do. I haven't really nailed a P10 in a while. I'm going to go with someone who's familiar with this track. Alex Albon.
Alex Albon. You're going to go back to the Williams well, huh?
I'm going back to the Williams well.
My P10 prediction is Ollie Behrman. I think Ollie is that third rookie. I think he's actually going to hit P10. Haas has been pretty solid. He's been, like I said, this year, he's been terrifyingly consistent, hovering around that spot, but not quite reaching that spot. So I think that's probably going to be it. Nonetheless, though, our P10 predictions are out of the way. Let us know down in the comments what you think is going to happen this race weekend. Who you think is going to win? Who do you think, maybe Oscar Piastri takes the top step and, extends that championship lead? And when you hear from the TLPs, let us know down in the comments below. But with all that being said, it's time to wrap this thing up. It's going to do it for this episode of the Lapped Podcast. We want to thank you guys for watching or listening, if you're a listener, all the way to the end. If you haven't joined the rest of the TLPs yet, make sure to hit the subscribe button. YouTube's our base platform. We're on the Instagram. We're on the TikTok. We're on the social medias. You can give us a follow. It's been scrolling at the bottom of the screen below the whole time. But we're trying to get that number to 100 before the end of this season, guys. So if you can do your part, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. And hell, if you got to the end of this video, Kevin, what the hell are these people doing if they're not subscribed at this point?
I don't know. If you're willing to listen to us chatter about Formula One and you find it interesting, subscribe, like it. This is us. This is what we do. And better
put it in front of your neighbor, whether they asked you to or not. Put it in front of their face. Maybe they'll enjoy it.
Be respectful. Be respectful
with consent. Yeah.
Maybe the next time you go in for an oil change, ask your oil change guy if he's a Formula One fan, because I found out mine was.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we got to get him to subscribe next time. You know, you got to go in. Be like, you want to get a picture? Put me on your celebrity wall of fame. Nonetheless, though, that's going to wrap this thing up here. We're excited for the United States Grand Prix this weekend. Busy weekend sports-wise. But until next time, that is Khaki Kevin Walker. I am Tristan Ryans. Be safe, be well, and let's go racing.